you want me to keep it off for a sec?
You can turn it on. Just point it away from that microphone.
Is this on?
No, not yet.
Can you do a little like intro?
Yeah.
Check 2. All right, it is at 4:30. We got our keynote speaker. Anybody wants to come down and just kind of occupy this area? Tim is speaking right here. He's kind of has your back to you guys. So if anybody wants to come down in this area and kind of hang out. My sister, oh my gosh, Shannon, come on up. There is a seat for you over here. This great couch over here. I might ask you if we could. So anybody that wants to come see this, we are going to do our keynote speaker, Tim Schaefer. And I'm going to let Braden go ahead and introduce him. And I'm going to hand this over to you, Braden. All right? Hey, can everybody just give a big round of applause for Braden Bringhurst right now? Yeah, he helped put this thing together all day. He's been the guy. So give it up for Braden. And Braden, I'm going to hand this over to you, bud.
Thank you so much, Beeve. We love you. Appreciate you making this day amazing with your great vibes and bringing the good music and all you're doing for this. So really appreciate you. So my name is Braden Bringhurst. Passionate mountain biker and Boise native. I love this town. I've been coming to Bogus Basin since 7th grade. And I just want to say a few words before Tim Schaefer goes on and gives his keynote speaking event. And, I just want to share a few words about the festival and how much this festival means to us as a community and me myself. This is the 5th year that this festival's happened, and it's continually gotten better and better and better, and it's only because people have really poured in and given of their time and their talents and have really kind of dedicated so much to making this day special. And I hope that you've been able to feel the love and the acceptance of whatever style of riding you enjoy, and just the camaraderie of getting out on two wheels and being part of this amazing community. And the mission of the festival has been the same, and it will remain the same. And our motto or our slogan is to celebrate, to educate, and to advocate all things mountain biking. And we try to hit all of those marks. Celebration. We have group rides. We have what I'm going to do after Tim speaks is recognize and hand out these community impact gifts and recognize these amazing individuals in our community, as well as celebrate all the different styles of riding. That's why we have gravel group rides, bike packing group rides. We have a whip off. We try to pay respect to every discipline. The second one is educate, and we really tried to do a lot this year with more clinics than ever, panel discussions, more classes, more things to help share the wisdom of others around here and just help people feel accepted and informed on cycling. And then the third thing is to advocate. So we have amazing mountain bike organizations in town, and we want to shine light on all of them and what they're doing. And so without going in any more detail of that, I would like to introduce Tim Schaefer. Tim Schaefer is an amazing individual. I've been riding alongside him for years. I've seen him go from not really being able to hit some of the jumps at Eagle to working every day and hitting those jumps and getting up in the mornings and going to the gym early, and just being an inspiration of going after your goals, to last year having a devastating crash and having a spinal cord injury. And I remember seeing this post or story on Instagram, and I said, Tim, I'm so sorry to see you went down. I hope you're okay. And the first thing he said was, I'm going to be great. And it's just been amazing to see him fight and I'll let him go on with his story, but we just want to really sincerely share how grateful we are for you, Tim, being up here and sharing your story. And so we turn the time to you, Tim. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Braden. I appreciate that introduction. Thanks everyone for showing up. First of all, I did write out a speech for this. I'm gonna start out a little bit nervous, but as I get into it, hopefully it just smooths out and everybody enjoys this. So I'll just go ahead and get started. Fellow riders, thank you all for coming today and spending a moment to listen to my story. I hope everyone is having an awesome time and I can offer you something today that gives you a little inspiration. My name is Tim Schaefer and I think I'm an okay mountain biker, or at least was. About 9 months ago I had a life-changing accident here at Boise Basin where I broke my back and was told I would not walk again. Braden asked me to speak today to share my story and more importantly my insights into how I maintained a healthy mental space through this last year and kept a positive mindset during my immediate rehabilitation in Utah. A little about me: I was born and raised here in Idaho, a BMXer, a skateboarder, a snowboarder, and a rebel. I had a unique story growing up with some of my antics. Living here in the Gem State, I dabbled in college and financed my early adult life by bartending in Caldwell. Later, I took the scenic route in my education to become a geologist, which is what I do today. The story of my recovery really begins about 9 months before my accident. Winter 2023 was a remarkable time for me. I was coming up on my 40th birthday, had well over 60 days of snowboarding on the mountain that season, most of them here at Bogus, and was looking forward to conquering sage fright and moving up to bigger dirt jump lines and trails at all of our favorite bike parks. But despite these highs, I felt that I was lacking in the staples of life. A career I truly enjoyed that left me fulfilled seemed beyond my grasp. The income for a new home was quickly becoming a dream with my current situation. I felt I was only good at having self-centered fun and not looking out for my or my son's future in any meaningful way. I was down on myself and told myself I was a loser and felt beyond the hope of finding. I felt like I'd hit rock bottom and got to a point that I felt completely done with everything. I refused to let this be my story though, and I was going to change how it ended. Somehow, some way. I was desperate to change my life. Now I knew I'd been in this place before, but something was different this time. This time I really meant it and I was taking action. I was hungry for it. This time I decided to reach out for help, something I didn't typically do. I began seeing a counselor who helped me regain the skills I needed to change my perspective. I self-reflected on my strengths and took inventory of my weaknesses. When I realized I had more areas I wanted to improve, I began working with a men's coach to focus on my health, my relationships, and my career. I took the tools I learned from both my counselor and my coach and put them into practice. I saw my attitude change as I found solace in getting up at 4 a.m. to work on me for the first 3 hours of each day. I was showing up as the best me and putting in the work to get better. And I could sense that I was getting better. I had friends telling me there was something different. Family was saying it, and I was reaching out and connecting with people I likely would not have before. It was so empowering to be taking life on in this way, because I was not used to anything like this. I began investing in myself and surrounding myself with more like-minded people. I became one of my own biggest cheerleaders. I focused on what I wanted out of my life and stopped blaming others for where I was. I had hired a coach because I knew I couldn't do this on my own. I stopped the bad habits I had always had and began to see improvement in mentality and direction. I felt on top of the world with my improvements and even entered my first downhill race and got second in the community race series on my hardtail. I finally felt like I had the tools to make a difference in my own life and was heading the right direction. Work was getting better. I was making progress on my mountain biking goals. I was healthier and getting my world in order. Every new challenge felt like an opportunity to prove to myself what I was made out of. And I was slaying it, taking one little problem at a time, solving it, and moving on to the next. I operated myself this way through the summer. I kept working on my mountain biking goals, going to the gym, enjoying my relationships. and staying focused on improving myself in all categories. I was so incredibly thankful for the blessings I was beginning to see in my world. And then came Labor Day, and it was almost as if the prior 9 months were in preparation for that afternoon. I came up to Bogus that weekend and met up with a fellow rider and friend, Kenny Woodall. After taking one warm-up lap through air traffic control, Kenny got a call from Kevin Lillywhite and asked us if we wanted to meet up and ride with him. I was stoked to go ride with these two, and I think they intended to meet up anyway, so we said yes, and Kenny and I headed up the lift. We met Kevin there at the top, had a quick conversation of where we wanted to ride, and decided that we'd head over to Rabbit Badger. Kevin was out front, followed by me, and then Kenny. We rolled through the upper trail to get over to the beginning of Rabbit Badger, where Kevin stopped at the first jump after the rock roller near the top of the run. Kenny and I followed shortly after and stopped along with Kevin. We had a quick discussion, and Kevin started to walk his bike back up the trail. He stopped a short distance above the rock and got ready to send it from there. Kevin rode by Kenny and me. I remember recording that on my phone. I knew Kenny wanted that lap just to be a warm-up, so I said I'd go ahead and go next, put my phone in my pocket, and began pushing my back up to where Kevin had just started from. I remember thinking that I didn't love the short takeoff, but I had ridden this trail 1,000 times, and I thought I would know if something didn't feel right. It didn't take long to set up, just got to the starting point and turned around, spun my pedals, made sure my GoPro was running, and went for it. I rolled over the rock, and it felt like I was lacking speed coming in the first small jump. The back tire hung up slightly as I landed, but I had nevertheless made it, and I was picking up the speed I needed. Second jump came, and I landed smooth, but as I rode through the transition to the next jump, I ran directly over a cow pie and got a nice roost up my back from it. I was now thinking about wearing cow crap all day as I lined up for the third smaller jump that set you up for the tabletop. But I sent it smoothly over, and up next was the tabletop. I told myself to clear the thought of the cow pie and focus on the upcoming lip. As I rode up off the face of the jump and started looking for my landing, I noticed three riders standing off trail, setting up filming equipment. I panicked, thinking I needed to adjust my takeoff to be well clear of them, even though they were off trail. I ever so gently tapped brake and steered slightly to the right to avoid going toward them as I came off the lip of the jump. But in doing so, I had sent myself into the air on an unstable axis. I started falling to the left and saw the front tire dipping. I knew I was in trouble. I pushed the bike forward to try to get ahead of it, or try to get it ahead of me and over the landing, but my body position and speed all but ensured what was about to happen. I came up short. The front tire surprisingly made it over the top of the landing, but my back tire didn't. I rode a hardtail, and when all that energy went into the back tire, it bucked the bike and sent me right over the bars. I landed on my back, bounced once, and my universe and me came to a complete stop. I don't remember feeling the impact of it all. All I know is that I had just wrecked, and I wanted to get up immediately to make sure I was okay, but nothing. I think someone asked if I was okay. I can't feel my legs was my response. Someone else asked if I wanted to be moved to a more comfortable spot. Don't touch me was my response. With some extra, more colorful language sprinkled in, I'm sure. I was going into shock as Mitchell, who I consider an angel from that day, arrived and began his first responder aid. This is where that day begins to become too fuzzy to recall every detail accurately, but Bike Patrol called EMT as soon as they heard of the accident, and they were already on their way up to get me. I don't remember anything else that happened while I was still on the mountain. I do want to thank the Bogus Bike Patrol, specifically Mitchell and Tori, I apologize, for their efforts that day. Their quick response is a huge part of my recovery, and I'm fortunate to know them to this day. I was rushed down to St. Alphonsus by ambulance, and nearly the entire ride down is a foggy memory to me, if there's anything there at all. It took less than an hour and a half for Bike Patrol to stabilize me, and EMTs to drive me down the mountain to the hospital for surgery. My only memory of the ride down the mountain is when the medic asked if he could cut off my Fox Baseframe Pro back protector. I figured since it hadn't done its job, it could go. He cut it off and the memory quickly fades to black. I woke up at the hospital. I was getting prepped for surgery, and Dr. Hajar came to talk to me while other staff was having me sign papers. I asked Dr. Hajar, "Will I walk again?" And he looked at me to tell me that it wasn't likely with this type of injury. And he had every reason to say it then. I couldn't move or feel my legs. The one nugget during this exchange was staff commenting on how well I could still write my signature. They didn't know it, but those comments gave me hope, for it told me I was still me, even if all hope initially seemed lost. But I could reminisce on that later. It was time for a major neurotrauma surgery, and I had volunteered. Late that night, around 4 a.m., I woke up in my recovery room. I took a photo of that moment of me at my weakest I had ever been. I was alone in the dark, sterile room. It would be my home for the next 10 days. I felt strange, like I'd already accepted this fate, and I knew I would just move forward from there. The damage had been done, and I had the choice to make. Embrace the challenge ahead of me, or let it define what my future was going to be. I told myself I would get a cool wheelchair. I would get good parking. Started searching for spinal cord information online, and looking for profiles on social media of athletes and stories of other spinal cord injuries. I looked for what a good life could look like, and I saw an entire universe that I had been blind to before. Life wasn't going to be the same, but I could make sure it wouldn't be all that different. I knew that there were still a million experiences out in the world to be had, and I wasn't going to let the fact that I could do a quarter of those from letting me experience all the other opportunities out there that were still available to me. I knew there was support and opportunity out there, but I would have to put in some work to go find it. For now, it was time to rest and recover. In that first week, most everyone around me seemed like a blur. Doctors, nurses, physical and occupational therapists, caseworkers, housekeeping, friends and family. There were so many coming and going, the memory almost seems like a long exposure photograph. I remember people, but it's hard to recall the sequence or frequency of those visits. I think my Uncle Ron and Aunt Judy were the first among family to visit. My dad and mom were both out of state when they got the news. Dad was in Arizona battling for his health, and mom at home in California. My mom and brother drove up from California immediately upon hearing the news to be by my side. Friends began arriving, long faces everywhere. I tried to smile because I thought everyone would reciprocate the gesture. I thought it might even relieve some of the tension in the room and relax people a little. Some followed suit, others were still too distraught. And I get it, I'd been working at this, riding bikes, being healthy, some self-improvement along the way. Tim was going up. He wasn't supposed to go down, not like this anyway. Now I lay confined to a hospital bed in a neurotrauma recovery unit at St. Al's. That first week was a blur of pain and uncertainty of this new unknown. After I woke up from surgery, I felt the hope fade that it was all a dream, and then I was left with the reality that I would likely not walk again. The doctors came in on occasion, sometimes with a little hope, other times with grim news. Dr. Hajar was the one that told me the extent of my injuries. When I landed, I burst my T12 vertebra and damaged my spinal cord. The doctor surgically inserted a titanium bridge to help relieve the swelling and provide support. As he showed me more x-rays, I found that I had also broken a clavicle and broken 2 ribs. Not to mention any emotional trauma that I would later contend with. Another one of the doctors from my surgical team came in to ask me if anyone had talked to me specifically about what the future looked like. I wasn't quite sure what she meant, but one sentence would make this perfectly clear. The doctor's exact words were, "This is probably permanent." I understand why doctors tell patients this, but in that moment, I refused to accept that. I refused to accept that this was an end to my story and all of my fun. I told myself I will walk again. And I meant it, even if the odds would be stacked against me. Once word got out, I was overwhelmed with support and prayers to help lift me up to the point it brought me to tears. Other friends, coworkers, and family began helping me move, sell my truck, and get myself in a position for a new life, even if I wasn't sure what that would look like. I was in pain that first week, but I had the most supportive community around me, and I felt comforted by all of them. The occupational therapist began teaching me transfers into a wheelchair. I had a couple of physical therapy sessions, and I started learning what my new bowel routine would look like because I lost that function too. I was discovering all the new challenges that lie ahead. At St. Al's, I was given 3 choices of where to go for inpatient rehab. I knew I just wanted to be in an environment that would give me the best possible chance at recovery. Craig Nielsen Rehabilitation Hospital at University of Utah in Salt Lake City is known as one of the leading trauma rehabilitation hospitals in the country. So if I could go there, I was going to. I spent 10 days at St. Al's before I was transported to Craig Nielsen Rehab. I was told I got in because I had a great attitude toward therapy and there was a small possibility I could have some recovery. What I really heard was that I had reason to be hopeful. I saw that there was still a future ahead of me, but it would take time to process all that had taken place. When I arrived in Utah on September 15th, I was met by the kindest nurse. I was transported up to my room where I met my team, Dr. Park, Dr. Shipman, affectionately known around the hospital as Hank, Sarah, my caseworker, and other health professionals that would be there for me. Hank would later tell me that when he heard my story, he told his colleagues that he had to be on my team. He's also a mountain biker and a skier, and at one point suffered an unfortunate spinal cord injury that left him paralyzed down his left side. But to see him walk today, you would never know. When he shared his story with me, it left me in tears, but I was so inspired by it. I had a long road ahead of me that would be full of highs and lows, and I am beyond thankful for the team that got me started down my road to recovery. We intended for me to start physical therapy the day after arrival, but somewhere in the transport to Utah, someone forgot to send my TLSO brace with me. It's like a really expensive back brace. So it was frustrating to start like that, but one of my best friends had sent me to Salt Lake with a few uplifting books. So I dove right in. The first weekend was somewhat uneventful with no physical therapy appointments, but I would soon discover what inpatient rehab is all about. My first week, I did not have nor want any visitors. I was there for a purpose, and I was going to get the most out of my time at Craig that I could. I still was not walking when I arrived. I could barely move a toe. In fact, it was more of a twitch. By the end of the first week, I had made the connection to my right leg and could move my knee up off the bed slightly. Shortly after, I was able to move my knee back and forth, side to side. They removed my catheter during the first few days, and I had to learn to use a straight cath each time I needed to relieve myself. I required assistance for any bowel movement, as that function still was lost and wouldn't return for another week or 2. But my TLSO brace was here, and I could begin my rigorous rehabilitation. Aaron and Dana were my occupational therapists. We began working on dressing myself and doing simple tasks like transfers to the wheelchair. Aaron was always so nice, and I think she made Dana the taskmaster because she wouldn't let any half-ass effort slide. I began working with my physical therapists, Casey and Val, to get any sensation or motor function back. Those 4 therapists hold a special place in my heart, and I simply don't have the words to thank them enough for what they have done for me. We continued working together and kept seeing more and more improvement. By the time I left Craig, I was able to walk with a walker around the physical therapy gym. Probably I'll never walk again? I think not. I found a new hope during my time at Craig Nielsen Rehab. I reached out to others with spinal cord injuries, and I found a community that understood my struggle. Being among other neurotrauma patients, I was able to see a full range of injuries. The entire community at Craig was so supportive, and I made a few friends that I keep in contact with to this day. I was so lucky to be accepted at Craig. I was discharged from inpatient rehabilitation on October 17th. I had been there for a month. My mom would drive me home from Utah. She had been in Idaho since she arrived back in September and would stay with me until Thanksgiving. Returning home was a harsh reality. I had been going to physical therapy six days a week for at least 3 hours a day. When I returned home, I discovered I wouldn't even be able to start my physical therapy for over a month. That time was nearly unbearable. I felt as though I'd lost everything. My ability to walk, my ability to parent the way I wanted to, possible future relationships, my truck, my apartment, my ability to feel rested, good sleep, exercising, biking, snowboarding. I lost them all. Even getting out of bed in the morning felt like a monumental task, physically from the injury and mentally from the frustration. All the things I felt made my life more enjoyable were off the table. I was left with just the parts that require effort and discipline. The right mentality was imperative for me to move forward, but it would not be easy to maintain, and I often didn't. Life after inpatient rehab continued to be a challenge, but I was putting in the work. I spent November to April going to physical therapy 3 times a week with my amazing physical therapist, Kyle, at St. Luke's Elks Rehab. He called me his star pupil once, and now my goal is to live up to that. He is in the audience today, so I want to make sure I mention how awesome he is and how thankful I am that I get to work with him. The first session I had with him, I arrived in a wheelchair. Now when I arrive, he takes my assistive walking pole, and I walk on my own volition to the therapy gym. I had occupational therapy twice a week at the beginning with Emily, but that tapered off mid-February once I was able to drive again. I guess when you crush your goals, the opportunity to move on to new ones arises. I visited with my counselor once a week, who helped navigate how to keep me mentally involved with life, but I still felt like I was getting worse emotionally, while better physically. Around early May, I decided I needed to reach into my bag of mental health tools I developed over a lifetime of battling with different issues and fight back. The journey had been mentally draining, emotionally wrecking. I sought anything to regroup. Cognitive behavioral therapy, stoicism, reading, new hobbies, imagining the possibility of a new future, volunteering for others at Idaho State University, and reaching out to the Challenge Athletes Foundation, among others. Seeing what others in my situation have accomplished gave me hope. I saw they didn't just survive, they were thriving. I relied heavily on the things I had learned during my renaissance the previous year. Sometimes it worked, other times I sat in my bedroom crying. But those days were getting further and further apart. The hardest part of a spinal cord injury seems to be in the first year. Not physically during rehab, but mentally adjusting to what? Sorry. But mentally adjusting to what life is going to be like. I'm still putting pieces back together to this day, and will be well into the future. It is hard to explain with any logical detail what I've been through unless you have lived through some of these trials as well. Every spinal cord injury is different. That's the common experience. So even when we reach out to a fellow SCI, our experiences are vastly different, and similar questions are not always answered the same. But seeing others who have been in our shoes and are now living life to its fullest despite adversity gives us hope. I spent time writing this speech, and it's given me time to reflect on why I was able to navigate this traumatic experience with a seemingly positive attitude. I battled with mental health all my life, so I honestly wasn't sure which way I would go in the beginning. I was afraid I had lost too much, and I would never be able to replace the joy that mountain biking brought me. My mental health outlet was gone, but there was so much work to do that I lost myself in it and let that be my area of progression. I took the same lessons I learned last year of consistency, intention, and perseverance with me into recovery. I was still smashing goals, but instead of getting the next big jump on stage fright, I was getting more steps than the day before. The lessons from last year's self-improvement journey were so applicable that I was able to keep the same habits and simply change the goal. At the time, I didn't think about it, I just got to work. And in the times when my mental health deteriorated, I reached out for help. I am not normally one to do such a thing, but it was the best decision I made for my well-being. And that set me up for where I am today. I now use one trekking pole for mobility in the community, but but can navigate my home without one. My goal is to strengthen my legs so I no longer need any assistance. I've also been able to ride nearly 50 miles on my bike in June, restoring my lost outlet and bolstering my mental health. I didn't know I would get this far so soon, but it never would have happened without putting in the work with grit and determination. There will always be adversity in our lives. We can't change that, but we can change our reaction to it. No matter the challenge, I want to tell you that you can take it on. Get to work and see what happens. We never know exactly where we will end up, but not doing anything ensures we will remain the same. Thank you.
Amazing, Tim. Thank you so much, man. That was so good. And hey, buddy, your dad's unbelievable. Wow. Thank you so much for putting the time and energy into that speech, Tim, and sharing that with all of us. So now we're going to go into two things. I'm going to go into this community recognition and gift giving, where we're going to celebrate the amazing people in our community. And I apologize for anybody that I've left out. I know I have. But I've tried to compile a list of individuals. As we all know, this is a 1.5 day festival, and it's a lot of work, but you know, there's people day in, day out, week in, week out, doing amazing things in our community, and we want to shine a little light on that. And we want to give them a gift. We have a shirt, just a simple Boise Mountain Bike Festival shirt with our slogan on the side, celebrate, educate, and advocate, that we're giving to them with a water bottle. And that is just an expression of our gratitude for these people. So I'm going to start going through the list, and then after that, I will do a little advocating, and I'll talk about some amazing things Swimba is doing. And then I will turn the time over to Susan to share their mission, and then invite people to go down and participate in the big raffle at the main stage down there by the grass. So without further ado, I'm going to go through and start talking about these community impact leaders. So the first one that I'd like to recognize is an amazing individual. By the way, I'm going to say amazing a lot, okay? This individual is coaching day in, day out, helping so many people. Every time I go to Eagle Bike Park, I see this person, whether it's with a little kid or it's with a big group of people. He's out there, he loves it, and he's doing it from his heart. And that is Levi Wirt. So give him a big round of applause. Hey, come over here and take your bag, and it has the size of your shirt on it. Thank you, Levi. You are. Okay. Oh, yeah.
They're small, medium, large, extra large in the back.
Perfect. Maybe you could help
Okay.
organize.
Sure.
All right, the next individual. This, you know, I think this is such an important part of riding, and it's the camaraderie. It's not about just getting